we're gonna work on opening up the shoulder joint itself. So we're gonna need a super band of varying width depending on how much resistance and distraction your body can take. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna thread the hand through the band this way so that we can kind of allow the band to rest around the fingers this way. The idea here is so that we're not gripping the band tightly, because the tighter our hand squeeze, the more the rotator cuff will fire. So the goal here is to relax the muscles and let the joint get some space and movement. So we're gonna come back just enough to where we can get some bounce on this band. And then you're just gonna sort of squat or forward bend. The position of your feet can vary. I think the best will often feel with the same arm as leg to be back. So we're gonna come down, bend, let the band pull the arm up and out, kind of out of the joint, if you can imagine that, relaxing the rotator cuff as much as possible. We're trying to get sort of a flat back so the arm is coming straight up and through. We can work to sort of rotate the palm toward the ceiling, as that's gonna really work in that overhead position or sort of shoulder pressing type of motion. And then we can vary your angle a bit. So rather than the arm coming straight overhead, now we're sort of in that snatch grip position. Again, hand rotating toward the ceiling, relax the rotator cuff, and let the shoulder distract. We're gonna work in each of these positions for about 1 minute to 90 seconds. Making sure to breathe big and deep into the diaphragm so that the system is relaxing and allowing you to gain and keep that space. Give it a try. Another important position of joint opening and creating joint space is to be able to have space in the shoulder from medial to lateral. So with this mobilization, we're really gonna work to open up the space this way. So you may notice a big difference after mobilizing this one for reaching across the body. So if you tend to have pain when you reach across the body, or kind of reaching to do sort of like a shirt removal when we cross the arms and we're really compressing down into this space. So what we want to do here is tack the band, not necessarily up and down this direction, but we want to get it on an angle into the shoulder this way. So we're going to bring the band around the shoulder, and then you're going to take a little bit of space outward here. So again, the goal is for it to be on the arm bone or the humerus so that it's pulling out and toward the bars that direction. So you're just gonna come into a space where you can have some weight on your hands. The mobilization here is one, to try to relax the rotator cuff. The other is we're gonna sort of spin the elbows so that they're turning to face and then relaxing. Turn to face and relax. And that's just gonna sort of spin the ball in the socket and get that nice 360-degree distraction through its full range. After spinning about 1 minute or so here, kind of noodling around in this position, then we're gonna allow the arm to now come across the body. So you're gonna reach across and sort of hook onto the opposite arm. And from here, now you can sort of play with your angle a little bit, but again, the idea is just creating joint space. So breathe, relax. You can come in and out of this position a few times and really let the shoulder relax when you reach into this cross body. Again, spend about another minute working through that mobilization as well, and then recheck and see how well we can reach across and over the body. So now we're gonna look at a few soft tissue components, meaning muscles and fascia, that can contribute pretty heavily to shoulder pain. So a big common one that can stand in the way are gonna be the upper traps. We also have kind of pecs in this region, and then some of the scapular muscles. We're gonna first focus on this upper trap, noting that underneath the bulk of the soft tissue here is our first rib. So alongside this soft tissue mobilization, we're also gonna get some first rib mobilization too. So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna use the rail of the rig here, but a door frame and ball on the door frame is gonna be a perfect place to do this at home as well. So we're gonna take our ball, we're gonna try to get the ball kind of directed right into like the chunk of our upper trap, right in through here. So the ball is gonna come here. We're just gonna situate ourselves so that we can get the ball here. And again, this would be our doorway here. You might have to stand up a little straighter so that your head doesn't bonk. But what we're gonna do here is, after we get a little bit of pressure, nail your breathing, so tone that in, so that we can relax. You don't want to push so hard that you're fighting against the body or against the pressures into the muscles. So once we get here, I first want you to just start with a few head movements. So we got some nice pressure on. We're going to look away. We're going to look toward, look away, and look toward. You can move up and down a little bit. So with this, we're kind of doing a pin and stretch. So we're pinning the muscle and the tissue into the lacrosse ball, and then we're asking the muscle to stretch through movement. Then you can find a comfortable place for the head, and then we're going to take the arm. We're going to do a little bit of movement here. So we can sort of bring it back into the small of the lower back, and then we'll wrap it up and around and reach for the sky. And we're just going to move through that a few times as well. So now we're taking the first rib, we're asking it to depress down and toward the other ribs and get out of that elevated state. We're asking it to move as we're working on the soft tissue of the lower trap all together. Again, you want to spend about a minute per side on this one, and this one's a good one to do bilateral so that we're staying nice and even within our body. Another big soft tissue culprit in shoulder pain is oftentimes the chest wall and the pecs specifically. Since we spend a lot of time seated at desks, working on phones, typing on computers, driving a car, we're often in this forward-facing posture. So we got to really work to open that space back up and allow for the tissue to give its shoulder its space back too. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to take the ball. The goal is going to be to kind of situate it right in. You can kind of open your arm and pinch this area here. We want to kind of lay it right on top of that guy. So we're going to get the pressure into, again, door frame or using a squat rack, something along these lines. We're going to get some good pressure in there. Now for this one, we're going to reach up into the side, and then we're going to wrap down and back and kind of push down as if you're trying to reach something down in the back seat behind you. And then you're going to reach up and through, down and back, up and through, down and back. You can try a few different areas, moving the ball from anterior deltoid in through the pec muscles and kind of work this entire region. Again, spend about a minute to a minute and a half on the painful side especially, but this one's a good one to do for postural work as well. And the third big culprit in shoulder pain within the muscle system of the shoulder is the subscap. The subscapularis is a rotator cuff muscle that's a little bit tricky to find. So if we reach kind of back and find this chunk of muscle in here, if we were to push into that and sort of dig underneath the shoulder blade or the scapula, over the rib cage and under the scapula, so kind of in that space that you can't really get your fingers, that's where we're attempting to get the ball. So to get set up for this one, we're going to take your lacrosse ball, you're going to come down onto your side. So we're going to start with the ball. So my lat is kind of running right along here. So we're going to get a little bit of lat release with this too, which is why it's such a good mobilization. So we're going to bring it on top of the lat and kind of in the armpit. And then you're just going to roll over on top of that ball, and then you're going to sort of push the ball in or your body forward. So we're really going to get situated into that area there. So from here, and this shouldn't feel good. So if it's comfortable, then you don't probably have it in quite the right place. So maybe noodle around just a bit. So once we get it in a nice spot where it feels productively painful, not so painful that you can't breathe. So again, lock in the breathing, make sure that you're relaxing, diaphragm so that your body and nervous system allow you to keep the space that you're about to torture yourself a little bit to get to have. So from here, we're gonna just bend the elbow, and we're just gonna work through external rotation, maybe hang out, breathe a little, appreciate how that feels, and then we're gonna rotate in. You can give yourself a little bit of an overpressure down this way, but we've kind of locked all the tissue in, so it's tough to get much motion here. And then we're gonna rock back and back. You can bring the arms straight and do a little bit of movement up and back this way, and then come back into your internal external rotation. Again, just kind of noodle around. You might scoot a little bit forward, let it come a little bit up onto the lats or just in that posterior shoulder. Another money spot you can kind of get with this is in this little corner of the shoulder right and back through here. So if you come out of the armpit just a little bit right into here, doing the same motions, that's a really heavy neurologic area where a lot of things within the rotator cuff tie together. So you've got the deltoids, some of the posterior rotator cuff muscles coming up. It's a really good spot to do circles on. Gently, controlled, and breathe. Give it a try. After working through some good joint mobilization and muscle and fascial mobilization, now it's time to stabilize. Primary stabilizers are going to work through rotator cuff and scapular muscles. So a great way to sort of overcorrect for some imbalances that we typically see with overhead movements and things like push-ups or pull-up type of motion is using reactive neuromuscular training, which is basically taking the thing that we do wrong and really exaggerating it. So a lot of us, when we tend to push overhead, the shoulder will kind of elevate with us, or it just doesn't quite engage the scapular muscles so that the shoulder blade does this nice upward rotation movement that it should do. So what we're gonna do is just take a light band, tack it somewhere right around chest height. From here, we're gonna do a shoulder press straight out, keeping the wrist and hand elbow all equal to the shoulder, and then we're gonna rise up above head, lower back down, and pull right back where you came from. So what we're doing is resisting the motion that the band wants to pull us, which is basically in and up. So our body innately wants to combat those things and pull out and adjust for that nice scapular upward rotation. A few key things to remember to avoid is to not sacrifice your spine for shoulder mobility. So if you find yourself up above head and you've kind of dumped your spine back and through this way as you come up, it's not worth it. So we're gonna take the rib cage, we're gonna tuck it back down, keeping the core active so that as we come overhead, it's on a stable thorax and an open thoracic spine. Next, we're gonna head to the wall and do a few wall clocks. So in a wall clock, we're gonna take, again, not too resistive of a band, just something nice and easy. We're gonna take one hand and tack it to the wall. So this arm is your working arm. This is your stabilizing arm. With the other arm, we're just moving in a clock fashion. So we might wrap the band so it's nice and stable. We're gonna reach up to 12, out to 3, down to 5, and repeat. You can add a few more numbers in there if you'd like, but what we're really working to do is stabilize your outstretched arm and work on scapular movement and keeping the shoulder down away from your ear as you work in various directions. For each of these, shoot for about 3 sets of 10 to 12, working slowly, making sure that you have plenty of time to recover in between.